All right, we have more changes unfolding in the U.S. real estate market and new laws that were recently passed or recently modified in a few select states, changes that permit the legal takeover of your house, your property that you own by squatters under specific conditions. And those specific conditions were just outlined in this viral TikTok video. Wait till you see this, alerting the masses of how to get away with this. Freaking New York property owners out. The entire story is crazy. So if you own property in one of these states or are thinking about buying property, you're going to want to pay attention. But before we get started, thank you for liking and sharing these videos. It really helps out the channel. And consider subscribing so you don't miss these regular updates. So if you aren't aware, recent squatting laws passed by a number of progressive states are getting out of control. Landlords are getting screwed. Even regular homeowners who have just a second home or inherited a second home from a family member are finding themselves between a rock and a hard place, especially in the state of New York. You need to be very careful, thanks to legislators who have recently updated this crazy law known as adverse possession, something that's been on the books for a while but recently modified to apparently help squatters take ownership of your house. I don't know if that was the intention, but it sure seems like it was. That's the consequence, at least. And unfortunately, the details of how to do this, how to pull it off, recently went mega viral after this Venezuelan migrant posted this video to TikTok last week that's gotten millions of views and massive press. We're going to play the video in full in a minute, but just for some context, what he goes on to explain is that this is like a new money-making hustle, basically. Him and his friends, how he and these friends of his that he says came here from Africa that have already done this to 7 vacant houses in New York, began squatting in them and followed the law, the process that this crazy law lays out, which lets the squatter take possession of your home, take the title of your home. It's crazy. Watch this.
Mi gente, he pensado invadir una casa en United States, ya que me enteré que existe una ley que dice que si una casa no está habitada, podemos expropiarla. Capichi, muchachos, aquí en United States también se aplica la de invasión de terreno. Y creo que ese será mi próximo negocio. Invadir casas abandonadas, ya que me he buscado unos códigos con mis amigos africanos y me dijeron que ya llevan como 7 casas expropiadas. Y como dice el dicho, papi, hay que buscar la vuelta. Y la vuelta ahorita mismo es invadir casas, ya que nos encontramos en situación de calle y es la única manera que tenemos para no vivir en la calle y no ser una carga pública. Capichi, la ley dice que las casas abandonadas, deterioradas y que esté en mal estado, podemos llegar y repararlas, vivir en ellas y si podemos venderla, hasta pedir créditos con ella. ¿Qué dicen ustedes?
So he says the only way for us to not be a public burden and get off the streets is to invade vacant houses in New York. It sounds like he's one of the 10 million or so illegal migrants that crossed the border in the last few years. New York City has been overrun with migrants. Their shelters are completely full, and many of the migrants are now homeless. We've played Mayor Adams explain the situation in prior videos, how it's beyond crisis levels, he says. Now, when he says we can legally invade vacant homes and take ownership of them, if you follow the codes, he calls it, he's talking about what's known in New York as adverse possession, which not only allows squatters rights over your property without your permission, but can also lead to you losing the property altogether. That's because this new adverse possession law, or modified law, states that if someone occupies your house without permission and they do so continuously, out in the open for a specific amount of time, they can legally take your title. Now you may be thinking, isn't that trespassing? Well, not in the state of New York. It's not temporarily on your property. They're living there consistently. They have to live there without interruption. You can't interrupt the process. They have to be there for a specific amount of time. They need to pay property taxes and act like the owner, which could include maintaining the property, making repairs, etc., like what we just saw happen to this poor lady in New York this week. Look at this. It's enraging. Quote, New York City homeowner arrested for changing locks after squatters take over her home. A woman who inherited a home in New York City full of people squatting illegally was arrested and led away in handcuffs after she changed the locks on her own home. She was placed under arrest at her $1 million house in Flushing, Queens, which she inherited from her parents after they died, unquote. Watch this.
I have video of you. Hold on.
Who are these people?
Figure out the situation.
Yeah, but they're in my house, man.
Relax.
No.
To understand how this day ended,
We need the police right away.
with multiple 911 calls and arrests, we have to start at the beginning.
Adele, the hardest question is how do you say your name?
We met Adele Andaloro outside the home her parents left her in Flushing, Queens. She's in the process of selling it,
No, he locked it.
but she's been locked out. She claims squatters moved in on February 6th and refused to leave.
What's it like being here knowing you can't go inside of your own home?
It's enraging. It really is.
In New York, squatters have rights after 30 days.
By the time that someone does their investigation and they do their work and their job, we'll be well over the 30 days, and this man will have stolen my home.
Now, there's a follow-up to this story. It gets even crazier. As New Yorkers are fed up with this crap, look at this, quote, 2 vigilantes show up to evict squatters at New York house where homeowner was arrested for changing the locks last week. A pair of vigilantes showed up to a house in Queens, New York, where the homeowner was recently arrested for changing the locks on her own house in order to try and evict squatters. On Tuesday afternoon, 2 unidentified men driving a black pickup truck pulled into the driveway of the Flushing home in search of the squatters, unquote. You could see the drivers rocking a Trump shirt. Here's the man who's allegedly the one squatting in the lady's home doing all of this. And listen to this, quote, another neighbor told the Mail that she had seen concerning activity at the house over the past few weeks, including one of the squatters carrying a door into the house one night. I actually saw the door go into the house. The guy looked at me, then looked away, she said. I didn't know what was going on. They were doing construction on the house all night long. I heard a drill and saw through my window that they were drilling holes into the wall and putting up boards, unquote. Very interesting, right? The squatters doing maintenance and renovations on the home. Why would that be? Well, it's one of the requirements in order to qualify for squatters' rights. In order to have the title transferred to you, you must act like the owner, something which this guy is most definitely doing, going as far as hiring a broker to help rent her house out for him. Act as the landlord for her house. This is completely insane. Watch this.
House, man.
Relax.
No.
I'm not a squatter. I don't even know what that word means. I'm a Marine. I was in the Marines. This is not my style. I'm going to call a real estate company and go meet with him right now. Matter of fact,
What are you going to tell them, the real estate company?
how would you bring me into this?
Hey, how's it going? I'm Kevin Sheehan from the New York Post. And we just wanted to know what is at the heart of the dispute between you and the titled owner of this house. That, you know, there seems to be some kind of irreconcilable difference of opinion of who owns the house. So I'm just wondering, what can you tell us about your side of the story?
Yeah.
Oh, we're just waiting on the lady to sue.
What's wrong? That's the only thing I got.
We're pretty much waiting on the lawyer. That's pretty much it. Like, I was scared into living there. You know, I'm looking to leave myself, but we just trying to get any time, man.
You said, so Jay, you said you were scammed into living there. How?
That's what happened.
Yeah, what happened? We haven't heard this before.
Can you put Kevin on the phone, please?
Put who?
The guy I gave you on the phone, man.
Oh, yeah. Sure, hang on a sec.
And remember, the NYPD arrested the real homeowner for simply changing the locks on her house, the house she inherited from her deceased parents. You better imagine her parents are rolling over in their graves, most likely, watching all this go down. Look, New York is a complete nut house at the moment. These new laws leading to people who leech off others having more rights than tax-paying Americans, tax-paying New Yorkers. We're seeing the justice system inverted by the DA there, Letitia James, who's moving forward with seizing the former president's properties if he doesn't pay her $500 million. New York used to be one of the beacons of entrepreneurship and free market spirit in the world. New York Stock Exchange is in New York City. But now it's like a shell of what it once was. Nobody knows what's happening in that state. Real estate-wise, especially after what they're doing to the former president right now, no one feels safe investing in real estate there at the moment. This is what happens when you have one-party rule. We're seeing the same thing in California and a few other states. These idealistic politicians no longer fearing their constituents, no longer fear losing their seats. So they just go further and further until we see policies like these so backwards, it's mind-boggling. So if you do have a second home in New York that's vacant, specifically in the city or an urban area, make sure to keep an eye on it. Install cameras on the property. The sooner you catch people squatting in New York, the better chance you have of getting them removed. Otherwise, you could end up like that poor lady. All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time.